Charlie Green entered the quiet diner, his worn olive coat bearing silent testimony to years of service. He settled by the window, waiting for his son, Marcus. A few patrons glanced at him, their stares lingering just long enough to remind him he didn't quite fit here. Charlie ignored them. He'd faced far worse. The bell over the door chimed, and a burly police officer strode in. His eyes scanned the room before locking on Charlie. His jaw tightened, and his boots thudded as he approached. "You lost," the officer sneered, his tone sharp. Charlie met the man's gaze calmly. "Just waiting for my son," he replied, his voice steady. But the officer wasn't satisfied. His comments grew crueler, dripping with prejudice. When Charlie handed over his veteran ID, the officer barely glanced at it before tossing it back. "Veteran doesn't mean you belong here." Charlie held his ground, but the officer escalated. The ultimate humiliation came when he spat on Charlie's coat, loud enough to draw gasps from the other patrons. Charlie's jaw tightened, but he simply said, "I have as much right to be here as anyone." The officer's face twisted in anger. Grabbing Charlie's arm, he yanked him outside, slapped on cuffs, and shoved him into the squad car. "Let's see how tough you are in a cell," the officer growled. At the station, Charlie waited silently, the weight of the cuffs a reminder of countless injustices he'd endured. Hours later, raised voices echoed down the hall. The officer turned, his confidence evaporating as Marcus Green, Charlie's son and a respected police captain, stormed in. "What the hell is going on here?" Marcus demanded, his voice cutting through the room. The officer stammered, attempting an excuse. "I didn't know he was your father." Marcus's eyes blazed. "That's the problem. It shouldn't matter who he is. You saw a black man and thought you could humiliate him. You spat on a veteran, you arrested him for sitting in a diner, and you thought you'd get away with it." The officer's arrogance faltered, but Marcus wasn't done. "You disgraced that badge and everything it stands for. Today, you're going to face consequences." The next day, the officer sat before a review board. Marcus presented witness testimonies and evidence, dismantling the officer's claims of procedure. When the officer muttered that Charlie had been uncooperative, Marcus shot back. "Uncooperative? My father was sitting quietly, waiting for me. You didn't see a man, you saw someone you thought you could control." The board delivered their verdict swiftly. Termination, effective immediately. The officer left the room, his head low and career over. That evening, Marcus visited his father. Sitting together on the porch, Marcus shared the news. "He's gone, Dad. Fired. They backed me all the way." Charlie nodded, pride evident in his expression. "You stood up for what was right, Marcus. That's what matters. It's not easy to confront injustice, but you didn't back down." Marcus clenched his fists, anger flickering again. "I can't believe he did that to you after everything you've done for this country." His voice trailed off. Charlie placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I've faced men like him my whole life. But today, you showed the world that men like him can't act without consequences. That's what matters." As they sat in silence, the night air cool around them, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. His father had taught him strength and dignity, and now it was his turn to carry that forward. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What would you have done in Marcus's place? Share your thoughts below and join us in the fight for equality and justice, ***. The story of Charlie Green's ordeal spread quickly. News outlets picked it up, framing it as a powerful narrative of justice against racial discrimination. Marcus's actions as a police captain earned widespread praise, and Charlie's dignity under pressure resonated deeply with the public. The diner where the incident began became a gathering place for discussions about racial inequality and police accountability. Patrons who had witnessed the officer's behavior came forward to share their perspectives, further fueling the movement that had begun to form around the Green story. Despite the public attention, Charlie remained modest. For him, the fight was never about fame or recognition, it was about creating a world where his son and future generations could live without fear of prejudice. One evening, as Marcus prepared to speak at a community forum, Charlie approached him with quiet encouragement. "Remember," Charlie said, his voice steady, "this isn't just about us. It's about all the people who never got the chance to stand up for themselves." Marcus nodded, his father's words anchoring him. "I won't forget," he said. The forum was packed, with standing room only. Community leaders, activists, and citizens filled the space, eager to hear Marcus speak. As he took the stage, the room fell silent. "My father taught me everything I know about strength, dignity, and justice," Marcus began. "And a few days ago, I saw him humiliated for no reason other than the color of his skin. It made me angry. But more than that, it made me determined." He paused, scanning the room. "This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a larger pattern, one that we have the power to change. But that change starts here, with us, by holding people accountable and demanding better." The crowd erupted into applause, their support unwavering. Marcus continued, laying out concrete steps for addressing bias within the police force and fostering dialogue between officers and the communities they served. By the end of the night, he had not only inspired the audience but also ignited a movement. Meanwhile, Charlie found himself unexpectedly at the center of attention. People stopped him on the street to thank him for his resilience, and his story became a symbol of hope for those fighting against discrimination. Despite the newfound recognition, Charlie remained humble. "I'm just a man who wanted to eat at a diner," he would say with a small smile. But deep down, he knew that his experience had sparked something much bigger, a call for justice that couldn't be ignored. As weeks turned into months, changes began to take shape. The police department implemented new training programs focused on de-escalation and implicit bias. Community advisory boards were established to ensure transparency and accountability. Marcus played a key role in these efforts, often drawing on his father's wisdom to guide him. "Always lead with integrity," Charlie would remind him. "Because when you do, the truth has a way of shining through." Those words stayed with Marcus as he navigated the challenges of reforming the system from within. One day, Charlie received a letter in the mail. It was from a young man named Daniel, who had seen the story on the news. "Mr. Green," the letter began, "your strength gave me the courage to stand up to the injustice I've faced. Thank you for showing me that dignity can't be taken away, it's something we carry within us." Charlie read the letter twice, his eyes misting over. He hadn't realized just how far his story had reached, or how many lives it had touched. When Marcus came by later that evening, Charlie showed him the letter. "This is why we do what we do," Charlie said. "Because when we stand up, we give others the strength to do the same." Marcus nodded, his resolve deepening. "And we'll keep standing," he said, "until no one has to face what you went through." The Green family's story became a turning point for their community, a reminder that change was possible when people stood together. And while there was still much work to be done, Charlie and Marcus knew they were on the right path, one step closer to the justice they had always believed in.